And now we're on the top of Daf Ayin Gimel Omid Beis. David asked Shalo Kiseder. His sequence of questions was an incorrect Seder. Vechzirlo Kiseder. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Urim V'Tumim, gave him the credit. He should have first asked whether Shol is going to come down to Keilah, and then he should have asked whether the leaders of Keilah would indeed give him over, hand him over to Shol. However, Kevan sheyoda sheshol shalokis seder, and he understood that he had mistakenly asked the second question first. Chazar v'sholkis seder. Now he asks the other question. Okay, now after getting the answer to what should have been the first question, whether Shol was going to come down to the city and force the people to submit David. Now, when he got the answer to that question, that Shol indeed is going to down to the city, now he asks, Hayazgiru bale ki'ilah, osi ves anshe ves hanoshai biad Shol v'yom Hashem yazgiru. So he reiterates his first question, which really should have been his second question, and then he gets an answer to his second question. Okay. Now the Bryce addresses the following, and that is Hutzruch Lidvarim Advarim L'Shnayim. What happens if there's an immediate urgency to get the answers to two questions simultaneously? Machzirin lo Shnayim. Then the Urim V'Tum will make an exception to the rule, and it will offer two answers. Shenemar, as we saw in the case of the questions of Amalek, about Amalek at Ziklag, that there were two questions. Vayishlu David B'Hashem Lemor ha'erdof achrei ha'gdura zeh ha'asigenu vayomer lo redof ki aseg tasig vatzel tatzil. So there was no time to ask two questions. David had to know the answer to. I'm sorry, there was no time to separate the two questions. You had to ask both questions simultaneously. Should I go down and battle? And will I be successful? And he got both answers. The Afal Pishik Zeras Navi Choseres Zeres Urim V'Tumim Eina Choseres. If a Navi predicts evil, then if the people do tshuva, they could be mavatel the nevuah, but not in the case of Urim V'Tumim. Shenemar V'Sha'alo B'Mishpat Urim. The word mishpat means gzar din. And once a mishpat gzar din, a final ruling has been handed down, it will never become bata. The Bryce asks, Lama Nikra Shman Urim V'Tumim. This is a pasuk in Shmos Chav Ches Lamed. Why is this name meaningful? Urim Shemeirim es Divreihem. It lights up their words. And the Marsha expands on this. He says, Al Yidei Aksav Shel Hashem HaMeforosh Shayamuna B'toch Kalfei HaChoshen Kaflei HaChoshen Hoyo Osios Shal Gabe HaChoshen Meiros Kifi HaNitzrach Lo Hoshiv L'Sheil HaShoel. So the lights on the Choshen would flash, and that's how they knew to put the letters together to make words. Tumim Shemashlimim es Divreim, meaning that the words of the Urim Tumim will always be Chai V'Kayim. And the Gemara asks Sakasha on the Bryce itself asks Sakasha V'Yim Tomar, and if you'll ask me, if Divrei Urim Tumim are Miskaimim, then what about the story of Givas Binyamin, when the Shvatim went out to battle against Shevet Binyamin, and they first asked the Urim V'Tumim, and although they did ultimately defeat Shevet Binyamin, but the first 2 days of battle, many of the Jewish people fell chalolim, and this is the whole episode of Pilegesh Begiva in the 19th chapter of Sefer Shoftim, and a bunch of Bnei Belial from the city of Givas Binyamin, they tortured a Pilegesh of a member of Shevet Levi, it's a terrible, terrible story. And Bnei Yisrael, the tribes of Israel were demanding from Bnei Binyamin that all those who were guilty should be given over. Bnei Binyamin defended them; they refused to give them. And then Bnei Yisrael asked the Urim V'Tumim whether or not they should go to battle against the Bnei Binyamin, and they got the answer that they should go to battle. But yet, in the first 2 days of that bloody war, they were very unsuccessful. Mipnei malo ishlimu. So now the Gemara asks, so why weren't the words of the Urim V'Tumim, didn't they come to pass? They weren't really fully realized. And the Gemara answers, the Bryce answers, Shehem Shalo Bichanu. The Urim V'Tumim did not say explicitly what would happen in the first 2 days. The answer was not given aluva tzlichu. All the Urim V'Tumim answer was alu elov. Let's go to battle. Now, im l'natzeach, im li-notzeach, it could be that certain parts of the battle you would lose, you would be defeated. But you have to go to battle because b'achrona, on the 3rd day of the war against Binyamin, shebichenu v'skimu, the Urim V'Tumim was telling them then they would win the battle, and it was a good idea on the part of Bnei Yisrael to go to this battle. Shenemar uPinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron omid lefadav bayom lahem limor haosif od lotzeis lemulchama bnei Binyamin achi imechdal vayom Hashem alu ki machar etnenu biyodecha. So that there was a 2-stage process. In stage number 1, when they asked whether or not they should go to battle against Shevet Binyamin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Urim V'Tumim, gave the answer of Alu Elov, that you should go to battle. He didn't say to them at that point whether they would win or not. When it came to the day 3, after they had suffered so many losses on the battlefield on days 1 and 2, they again asked Pinchas, the Kohen Gadol, to get us an answer whether we should continue in this war, because it seems like we're getting beaten and suffering so many losses. And then they finally got the answer from Hashem, Alu ki machar etnenu biyadcha, on the 3rd day. The Gemara asks, Ketzad nases? How is the Urim V'Tumim able to give an answer? In other words, what was the process by which the answer was given? And here we have machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. According to Rabbi Yochanan Omer Boltos, that certain letters would protrude, and that's how it spelled out the answer. Now let's keep in mind that the names of the Shvatim, the Yud Beit Shvatim, were etched into 12 stones on the Choshen. So the ayin of Shimon or the lamed of Levi, the hay of Yehuda, would protrude, and that would form the word aleh. The letters did not move from their places. The Kohen would determine the answer by connecting letters on his own. Whereas Reish Lakish Omer mitztarfos, they joined each other in order to form a response to the question. Now, it doesn't say exactly how they joined itself. It just says that in the Hebrew translation, osios hayu zazos mimkomon, that somehow the letters would jump out and form a word. It was not necessary for the Kohen to do any active interpretation by figuring out how to conjugate a word and take the various letters and put them together to form a word. The Gemara asks the following question: V'ha lo ksivbahu. The names of the Shvatim do not contain a tzadi. How could you get an answer of Hatzel Tatzil that we mentioned earlier when there's no tzadi in any of the names of the Shvatim? More answers on Rav Shimon bar Yitzchak, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sivsham. The names of the Avos were written or inscribed on the Choshen, on the first stone on the first column, which is called Odem, and that was above the name Reuven. And Yitzchak has a tzadi in it. So the Gemara asks, V'ha lo ksiv tes. There is no tes. Omar Ravi Acha bar Yaakov, Shivtei Yishurin ksiv sham. Below Shevet Binyamin, they inscribed the word Shivtei Yishurin, and the test of the word Shivtei would light up when we needed a test. And this was on a third Evan, on the fourth column, which is called Yishpeh. Gemara now asks a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Meisvei, we have a brisa that says Kol Kohen Sheinu Midaber Baruch HaKodesh U'Shchina Shora Imo Ein Sholim Bo B'Urim V'Tumim. If the Kohen is not capable of Ruach HaKodesh, that the Shchina Shora on him, then we don't ask him in the Urim V'Tumim. And how do we know this? Says the brisa Sharei, when David HaMelech was running as a fugitive from Avshalom, Shaul Tzadok, he asked Tzadok the Kohen in the Urim V'Tumim, also, and that was successful. He got an answer. But Evyasar, when he asked Evyasar Cohen, Lo also lo, Evyasar was not able to get an answer. He cannot evoke an answer from the Urim V'Tumim because Lo Shotzal of Ruach HaKodesh. And how do I know this? Shenemar, it says in Shmuel Beis Perek Tes Vav, Vayal Evyasar ad Tom Kol Ha'am. And we're going to darshan the word vayal as he'elu. He'elu means silku as Evyasar min hakuna gedola. And why did they remove Evyasar and fire him from his position as the Kohen Gadol? Because he asked a question in Urim V'Tumim and he couldn't get an answer. And David HaMelech now replaces Evyasar with Tzadok HaKohen. And the reason for that is because Tzadok HaKohen was Medaber Baruch HaKodesh and Shchina Shora Olav, and he was therefore able to ask the Urim V'Tumim and evoke an answer. But in any event, it seems clearly that the Osios Lo Ayu Boltos V'lo Mitztarfos, neither Rabbi Yochanan's Boltos or Reish Lakish's Mitztarfos actually took place, because if they did, then who cares whether he speaks Beruach HaKodesh? He doesn't need to understand and interpret the answer that he got. It's clear. These are the letters that lit up. So the Gemara answers, Siyue Havi Messiah Ba'adayu. We needed the schus of the Kohen, who was being asked this question, to give the Urim V'Tumim the power to answer these questions. In other words, there's not enough, shall we call it, power of Ruach HaKodesh inherent in the Urim V'Tumim. We need a combination of A plus B, the Urim V'Tumim together with the Kohen. And therefore the Kohen has to be so outstanding that he's Roy Shetishal of Shechina in order for him to be kosher and qualify for the She'ela of the Urim V'Tumim. If not, if he's not Roy, then you would not see neither Osios Boltos nor Osios Mitztarfos. If the Kohen was worthy of having the divine presence rest upon him, then the letters of the Urim V'Tumim would protrude or join together in response to its inquiry. If not, the response was not forthcoming. The Mishnah says, "Ein sholim el lemelech uliav bezdin ulemishat tzibur tzarech lo." And the Gemara tries to now clarify the source for this halach in the Mishnah. B'nani mili, how do we know this did? Amar Rabbi Avodi Amar Kra. The pasuk says at the end of Sefer Bamidbar, when they appointed Yoshua ben Nun as the replacement of Moshe Rabbeinu v'lifnei Elazar Kohen Ya'amod. V'sha'alo b'mishpat ha'urim l'fnei Hashem al piv yetzu v'al piv yavo u'v'chol b'nei Yisrael ito v'chol ha'eda. So we're going to darshan who is referring Zav Melech. That's an allusion to the king. And the pasuk is talking about Yoshua, who was appointed as the king of Israel. And then the pasuk says, "V'chol b'nei Yisrael ito zeh mashuach milchama." This is the person that the tzibur needs because he's going to take them out to battle, and he too has the status of a nishal, and he could get a response from the Urvatum. And finally, v'chol ha'eda zu Sanhedrin. They are called the Enei Ha'eda, and they too can evoke a response from the Urim V'Tumim. So the Kohen Mashuach Milchama is at all times the one who consulted the Urim V'Tumim, and that's what we want to get. Now, at no point does the Torah or the Gemara actually describe what the Urim V'Tumim were. Rashi, the Ramban, the Ritva, and other Rishonim maintain that it was a piece of parchment, a klaf, on which was inscribed the Shem HaMeforash. The Ritva says that the Urim V'Tumim was not man-made, but was given to Moshe by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that explains the curious fact that unlike regarding the furnishings and other Klei HaMikdash of the Kohen Gadol, there was never a tzivui to make the Urim V'Tumim. It's not recorded anywhere in the Torah. The Torah just simply says, and to the Choshed of Mishpat, you shall place the Urim V'Tumim. Taking for granted its identity would be understood. And the reason for this is because the Urim V'Tumim was actually not man-made, but rather was given to Moshe by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's one school of thought. Rav Hai Gaon has another interpretation. He maintains that the Urim V'Tumim refers to the precious stones that were set into the choshen, not the klaf on which the Shem HaMeforash was written. The Rambam might agree possibly with Rav Hai Gaon. We're not sure. This is a great discussion in the commentaries of the Rambam. The Ben Ezra, in his commentary on Shmos, says that the Urim V'Tumim was some sort of gold and silver forms, but this is rejected by the Rambam. There's another discussion here about whether or not there was more than one Urim V'Tumim, and that's a discussion that maybe we'll have a chance to raise Nether on a different occasion. So let me take this opportunity to wish you a great day, and thank you very much.